Recording.
Yes.
சரி இரு நான் கிளம்புறேன் அப்போ
Okay.
எண்டுல தான் வருது லீவ் மீட்டிங் நீ ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா ஹோஸ்ட் ஆயிடுவேன்னா ஆல் தி பெஸ்ட் பாய்
No.
Hello.
How are you? வந்துட்டு போயிட்டாளா?
என்ன ஹோஸ்ட் ஆக்கிட்டு போயிட்டேன்.
ஓகே சரி சூப்பர். நான் ஹோஸ்ட் இல்லை ஹோஸ்ட் ஆக்கிட்டேன் சூப்பர். ஸ்க்ரீன்ஷாட்லாம் பண்ணிக்கோ, இது டெஸ்ட் பண்ணிக்கோ ஒரு தடவை.
அதெல்லாம்
அண்ட் ரெக்கார்டு நான் பண்ணலாமா நீ பண்ணு? ஓகே
இல்லை, ஆல்ரெடி ரெக்கார்டிங்ல தான் இருக்கு.
இப்போ தேவையில்லையே. ஓ ஆல்ரைட். குட் மார்னிங், குட் ஈவினிங், good afternoon wherever you are. Nice to catch up again with this curious slot. This is Madanish from SBOA 2003 batch. We are back again for season 2 and session 3, I believe so. We are having a lovely host who has a multiple dynamic personality, Jagdish, one of my oldest friends from UKG. So he is going to talk about photography 101. This is recorded on November 22, Saturday, 9 a.m. Indian Standard Time. Over to you, Jaggi. Thank you.
Thank you. So today's topic is photography 101. And in this session, and again, this is a pretty vast topic, right? So I've just, for this session, I've just set up some of the fundamentals of photography, which you can take and apply to any camera, right? So that's the whole intent, at least for you to get an understanding of what photography is, what constitutes to a photograph, and then how you can take these principles and apply to any camera. You want to go on mute. So you can take this and apply it to any camera. It could be an SLR, it could be a medium format, it could be your phone camera, whatever, right? So the intent is for you to kind of understand how to photograph, and then the different styles of photography, what constitutes to a photograph. So that's the whole intent, right? So I am Jagdish. I've been photographing since my first grade. I basically picked this up from my father. And I've been shooting professionally for the last 15 years. Again, this is not my full time. I do shoot on the side alongside my day job, but then I do events, portraits, fashion photography, and I also dabble in a little bit of architecture and landscape occasionally when the need arises. Besides this, I also love to ride my motorcycle. So I do go on a lot of bike trips, and then again, in conjunction to that, I do take a lot of photography there and make music. So what we will attempt to cover today, right? So we will try to cover these three main topics: the trinity of photography, what are the different types of photography that are there, and how do you get started in mobile photography, right? So that's what we will attempt to cover today. And the first step is to kind of get you out of your comfort zone, so that you can switch from your auto mode in your camera, whatever camera that you use. How if I'm able to even get one person to switch from automatic to manual, where you're able to go play around with the settings, and before you actually click a picture, then yes, this session is successful, according to me. Right, so that's the whole intent, so that you get familiar with some of the settings in your camera that you might not have otherwise seen. So we'll start with the sensor itself, right? So what is the sensor? So the camera sensor is the most important part of the camera, because that is what actually captures the image, right? So it's like the retina of your eye, where that forms the actual image that you are currently seeing. And the sensor is also the most sensitive part of the camera, because it is very light sensitive, and then it can get damaged very easily with dust and everything. So that's also like the most protected part of the camera, right? So you have different sensors sizes. So you have medium format, which is what you will see all these Mamiya, Phase 1, all these large size cameras, which typically are applied in like fashion photography, where you need high detail, or product photography, where you need high detail, high levels of resolution. Or if you're going to be printing big billboards, like 40 feet high billboards and all of that, this is probably the camera that you'll go to. And the reason is because the sensor is big, right? So which means that it captures more details, it captures more light information, the dynamic range is more. So that's like the biggest sensor that is today that is out there. Then comes your full frame cameras. So you will typically see full frame cameras are also referred to as 35 cameras because that is the size of the sensor, right? So typically let's say your Nikon Z6 or your Canon R6, your Sony Alpha ones, they are called your full frame cameras. Why are they called full frame cameras? 35 is considered to be a standard in photography. So that's like the full frame. It's supposed to be the full frame. You get end to end, you're able to make full use of the sensor. That's called a full frame. Then you have APS-C, which is a crop sensor. Some of your smaller cameras, like your Nikon Z50, Z30s, and all are called crop sensor because they have a smaller size. And if you shoot in them, you basically get a slightly zoomed in kind of a view. So basically it crops into the image. So it's called a crop sensor. So let's say that your lens gives you a full frame. This particular sensor is only able to capture one part of that lens image. So it's called a crop sensor. It crops into the lens. Micro Four Third is an even smaller sensor, which you'll find in your point and shoot or some of your Panasonic cameras that are out there. Micro Four Thirds is also a pretty popular format for your street photography and all that, where you want something small, something light, something that people can't really see, that you quickly go take pictures and all that. 1-inch sensors, you typically find this in your drones, your action cameras, and all of that. And your phone camera is basically 1/2.55, right? So one thing that I want to kind of highlight here is that sensor is the most important thing, not the megapixel count. So let's say your phone boasts of 108 megapixel or 150 megapixel. That doesn't mean anything in the real world, right? So it probably means that yes, you can maybe zoom in a little bit, or you better slightly higher resolution. But when you compare the same image to some of these other bigger sensor cameras, the image quality will be greatly different.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
So there is something called 70 right?
those are film.
So that is not that's videography cameras.
Correct. That's film.
Okay.
So 70 I think is your typical IMAX format.
Okay.
Right. So that's film. Right. So and again, when you go to videography, you also have other things like your if you're doing like film videography, you have how much is your rotation speed, because 24 frames per second is like your
Yeah.
standard thing. Nowadays you have 30 frames per second as a standard. If you want to do slow motion, 60 frames
Slow
per
motion.
second is
Yeah.
the standard, and it goes up to 240 frames per second and all that, right? So in your modern smartphone cameras and all. So that's like a completely different set of
Journal.
sizes.
Okay.
For photography, 35 is the film size. So that's the same sensor size as well. So that is where all of this comes in. In film photography, you even have like large format cameras where you have like large plates that you basically put in and then
Yeah.
photography and all that.
Correct. Okay.
I'm just covering the digital aspects.
Oh.
I'm not covering film at all today. That's an
Okay.
entirely
But
different.
the film is kind of extinct already, or people still use it?
It's picking up. So it's like how people reinvent or
Vintage
recirculate
things.
things,
Okay.
right? So no, actually, Kodak has actually started producing films again.
Oh.
So
Okay.
film photography is actually picking up. So you can actually go out and buy a brand new film camera, and then you can buy film for it, and then you can shoot in film if you want.
Who is going to process it? So we don't need
There
to
are
have a processor.
there are like Konica Kodak process film, by the way.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
so
Thanks.
that. So trinity of photography, right? So this is like your fundamentals. This is like your gospel of sorts, right? So this is what you will refer to irrespective of what camera that you are using. So there are three primary aspects to what constitutes an image. First one is the aperture. And aperture is like the pupa of your eye, right? So this basically aperture is basically opens up and closes so that that exposes more light or lesser light to the sensor. So the smaller the aperture, so if you see f/16, that's the smaller the aperture, the darker the image. f1.4, the bigger the aperture, the brighter the image, right? So everything is relative in terms of like how bright or how dark the image will look like. Same with your shutter speed. Shutter speed is how fast. Let's say shutter speed is like your eyelid. Yeah, if I have to draw an analogy there, shutter speed is like your eyelid. So how much you keep your eyes open, the more the light you let into your retina, and the how fast it blinks, the lesser the light you let into the retina. But what that means is the slower the shutter speed, the more motion blur you're gonna get. The faster the shutter speed, the lesser motion blur you're going to get. And then you have ISO as a concept. ISO is basically light sensitivity in the camera. Like for every pixel in the sensor, the amount of light falling, what should be the translated value is kind of like your ISO. So the smaller the value, the lesser the sensitivity to light, which means the darker your image is going to be. But the higher the ISO, the brighter your image is going to be. But the side effect is that the lower the ISO, the less noise, the digital noise you're going to get in the image, and more ISO, the more noise you're going to get. Sometimes if you take a picture in a dark room, you will see that the image is having a lot of dots in it, right? So it'll be grainy, it'll be blurry, it'll have a lot of noise in it. So that's called digital noise. It's called that's because your phone is trying to boost up the ISO, and as a result, it is introducing noise into the picture.
Jaggi, question. So on the aperture analogy you gave is almost like our eyelids, no? If in
Aperture is
case
your pupa.
pupa madri, right? So what would be the analogy for understanding ISO?
ISO again, it's more of it doesn't really correlate with your eye.
Okay.
Right. So ISO is more like how do I say?
The granularity in which the details are captured
No,
is
no.
it?
So ISO is more of, if let's say that there is one pixel that is receiving light, how should it perceive that light? Should it perceive it as bright or should it perceive it as dark? That is what that basically says about the sensitivity.
Understood. Okay, I think I got it, but I don't know.
I'll go in a little bit detail to each of
Fine.
these.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so aperture. So this is like a typical SLR lens, right? So aperture. This is what aperture does. In the lens, you will see that there are blades that come together and then form this aperture, right? So the more you open, so it's very obvious, right? So the more you open, the more light that comes in. The lesser you open it, the lesser the light that comes in. But what happens here, right? So the more you open, the depth of field reduces. So let's say this is a typical scene that you're photographing. You're the photographer standing here, you're photographing a model. Let's say you're keeping the lens wide open. Whatever is going to be in focus is going to be in a very small plane of depth, right? So anything beyond that plane of depth is going to be blurred. Anything before that plane of depth is also going to be blurred. So you will only have a small plane where the image will be in focus. So if you're doing like a creative shot, or if you're doing something where you want the background to be blurred and all of that, then you open up the aperture more. But at the same time, you close down the aperture, you will see that the plane of focus, basically the depth of focus increases. So imagine you're trying to do a group shot, right? So you have multiple people standing together, some in the front, some in the back. You want all of them to be in focus and all of that. Then you typically close down on the aperture and then take the image so that everybody is in focus. Otherwise, what's going to happen? The set of people that you focus on are going to be in focus. Everybody else are going to be blurred, and they're going to come complain saying, "You're why am I not in focus?" So here are two examples of how I've used, depth of field. So can you take a guess on what would be the aperture settings that I have used for the image on the left and the image on the right?
Don't know the numbers. Left could be the maximum open and the right could be the minimum.
Great. So if you see on the image on the left, I've actually used an aperture of 1.8, which was the maximum for that lens. So you see that only the flowers are and the hand is basically in focus. Everything else is out of focus. Right. So that is what the depth of field does. Versus if you look at the image on the right, I've used an f3.5, which is a slightly, it's not exactly closed down, but it's at least 3x closed down from the first image. So that's why you see, this is the Shore temple, by the way, in Mahabalipuram. Right, so you see that the temple is in focus, you see that the trees at the back are in focus, and some parts of the sky are also in focus. Right, so
This
depending
is
on
almost like இப்போ நான் பிக்சல் எல்லாம் வந்து அந்த சர்க்கிள் மாதிரி இருக்குல்ல, அதை டச் பண்ணனா கரெக்டா அதை மட்டும் ஃபோக்கஸ் பண்ணது, பின்னாடி பிளர்
Correct.
ஆகுதோ இல்லையோ, but
Correct.
it's almost like the same. Okay.
Correct. So modern smartphone cameras use
Portrait.
use software generated depth of field, right? Because again, the lens is not actually big enough to actually it's not physically possible to create that depth of field from an optical setup that your smartphone has. So software is compensating for that fact in your smartphone camera. So you will have something called as a portrait mode, where you can create this similar effect, but all of that is software generated. But this in your like your SLR or your your mirrorless and all of that, this is actually physics at play.
Okay.
So the next thing is your shutter. Shutter is basically, like I said, it's your like your eyelid. So the slower the shutter speed, the more light you let in, but at the same time, if you're shooting like a moving object, the more blurry it's going to be. And the faster the shutter speed, the lesser the light you're going to actually let in. But then if you're shooting a moving object, that is going to be frozen in time. Right? So again, depending on the scenario, you have to creatively decide what is the shutter speed that you want to use. So again, these are two images that I have shot. So any guesses on what could have been the shutter speed on the left and what would be the shutter speed on the right?
Left should be slow.
Left will be slow.
Left will be fast, right?
Faster.
Left will be
Traction
faster and right
1
will be
divided by
like slow.
இன்னொருதுல. So,
ஏன்னா டான்ஸ் ஆடும்போது தி ஃபாஸ்டர் மூமெண்ட்ஸ் இருக்கும். ஸோ அதனால அதுக்கு வந்து ஸ்லோ.
பட் ரைட்ல என்ன டீடைல் ஸ்லோவா இருக்கிறதுக்கு? இட்ஸ் மெரினா பே, இட்ஸ் ஸ்டாட்டிக் ப்ராப்பர்ட்டி.
But look at the
அதுல
water.
லைட்
detailing வேணும்னா
But look at the water.
water, understood.
water.
Water and maybe light
So
also.
மூவிங்ல இருக்கும்.
Correct.
ரைட்
So the
சைடுல
water
வந்து
keeps
இஸ்
moving,
மூவிங்.
so the water is now blurred, right? So the water is like moving, so but you don't see the waves or anything. It's all like smooshed over. It's all sort of smoothed over, right? So
ஓகே, லெஃப்ட் சைடு ஃபாஸ்ட். ஓகே, which is almost like நம்ம இப்போ அந்த ஜம்ப் பண்ணும்போதெல்லாம் ஷட்டர் ட்ரிட்டர்னு அடிக்கிறோம்ல,
அது வந்து
burst இது.
burst mode. அது
அந்த பர்ஸ்ட் மோட் மாதிரி தான் அது. இட் இஸ் ஆல்மோஸ்ட் லைக் ஃபாஸ்டர் ஷட்டர் which is capturing at இப்போ வீடியோ மாதிரி. வீடியோ இஸ் நதிங் பட் 25 frames per second. அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு போட்டோக்குள்ள இது கேப்சர் ஆயிருக்கனால இந்த கர்வ் ஆர்க் வந்திருக்கு அந்த பரதநாட்டியம் டான்ஸர். கரெக்ட்டா?
correct. So this pose that this dancer was giving was probably maybe less than a second long, right? But then
yes.
for you to freeze that moment, I have shot it at 1/100th of a second, the image on the left. So that's how fast the shutter opened and closed. While if you look at the image on the right, the shutter was open for 21 seconds.
21 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You can do that long, huh?
Yeah, you can do infinite shutter open also. So it's called the bulb mode.
Okay.
Again,
But all this won't fit for smartphones. You're all talking about these cameras.
yeah, no. Even in smartphones, there are. I will talk about it in the next couple of things. There are apps that let you do this.
Okay.
Right. So yeah. So again, depending on your need, depending on the situation and the subject that you're photographing, you will decide what is the shutter speed that is required. So earlier we saw aperture. Here we are seeing shutter speed. So here, if you look at this, for this particular lens, f4 is the most wide open that I can shoot because I'm shooting a fast, image. So I can't close down my aperture also, which means that my image is going to be super dark, right? So I've tried to keep my aperture open, but shoot fast. So that way I'm balancing light. While if you look at the right, I'm shooting this for 21 seconds, but I've shot at an aperture of f by 18. So I've closed down the aperture and I've shot it for a longer duration. So that way the image is still balanced. So, so these are two concepts that you will have to balance, right? So keeping it wide open and shooting slow means that your image is going to be overexposed, and shooting it closed down and then having a fast shutter speed means it's going to be underexposed. So you will have to find a balance in terms of how you want the image to be exposed. So ISO, again, like I said, it's about light sensitivity, right? So ISO 100 means that the brighter the scene, the more brighter the scene you have. Let's say you're shooting in broad daylight or you're shooting midday, then you have the luxury of shooting at a lower ISO. Modern cameras, modern SLRs, mirrorless go to ISO 50, ISO 25 also. So and they go up to like 3,20,000 also on the top end, right? So the modern cameras support that, but then as a concept, understand that the brighter your scene, the lower the ISO you need. The darker the scene, the higher the ISO you need. But again, the artifact that it will introduce is that the lower the ISO, the lesser the grain. The higher the ISO, the more the grain you're going to see in the image. So again, this is another piece that you will have to balance for you to get the exposing correct, right? So these are three aspects that you will, have to kind of focus on if you are to get a properly full exposed image. Shooting in auto, the camera does the decision for you, so largely it becomes easier. But then if you want to take control of the image that you are shooting, you will have to kind of try and find a balance between these three concepts.
Sorry, nightல தான் grains வரக்கூடாது இல்ல, but still we are having more grains on nights. How does that work?
So grains come
It
in.
will be blurred if it grains comes in.
It'll look எப்படி சொல்றது, grains na, I don't know if you've seen, have you shot in the night?
Yes.
Right. So if you are shooting at a pretty dark spot, your camera tries to boost up the ISO on its own.
Okay.
Right. At least your smartphone camera will boost it up on its own. So what will happen is it's going to introduce a lot of these chromatic noises. This is called chroma noise.
Okay.
And the red, the green, blue noises it'll appear because there is missing information or there is no information for that particular pixel to capture. So it is going to introduce these artifacts into the picture.
Okay.
So typically, and because you're trying to boost up the sensitivity when there is no information, the camera is thinking there is something there, and then it is introducing the noise. So typically, if you're shooting in the night and if your ISO is also very high, your camera will introduce noise.
Okay.
And these are two images that I've shot. So this was in the coast of Australia that I've shot in like broad daylight, and this was Andaman. So any guesses on what the ISO settings would have been?
Obviously, left would be less, right? And right would be more.
Right. Fair. So if you see, I've shot this at an ISO 50, and this one I've shot it at an ISO 1600. The reason why I didn't go higher because I wanted that guard tower to be in focus, and that is a pretty well lit subject. So going beyond this would mean that the sky would have had noise. Right. So and if you look at some of the other parameters that are there, you will see that I've shot the left image wide open, but I've shot it at 1/800th of a second. And on the right, I've tried to keep it as wide open as possible. And then I've shot it at 1/50th of a second. So these are three parameters that I have balanced in order to get a properly exposed image. And one other thing, because I've shot the left image wide open, like f2.8, you see that the background is now blurred. Only my subject is in focus. So that is also the depth of field that is at play. Again, metering in photography, we'll not probably spend too much time here. It depends on your camera, right? So you have multiple types of metering. So what does metering, right? So metering is how your camera tells you how exposed is your image, right? So the way it does is this matrix metering takes in account all the light that is in the scene that the camera is seeing. Center weighted metering is only what is at the center of the camera lens. Spot metering is one particular spot that you're focusing on. What is the light information from that particular spot? And then highlight weighted metering is where it takes into account all the highlights of the image, which is basically all the brighter spots of the image, not the darker spots of the image. Right. So these are different algorithms in which your camera calculates the exposure of your image, and it's going to give you a meter, something like this in at the bottom. So if you've shot in an SLR, you will see this meter in either on the screen or inside the viewfinder. And then it's going to tell you how underexposed or how overexposed the image is. And that's an indication for you to change some of these parameters that I just showed. You will either play with your ISO, or you will play with your aperture, or you'll play with your shutter speed to get the right exposure of your image.
This is what they do with the handheld device in the locations.
Exactly. So they have a light meter there. So they basically go keep it on the subject, and then that will give you what is the light reading from there, and then what settings to use.
Okay, got it.
So white balance is another concept. Again, these are present in, like, the way film did it was the film had the white balance in place. So the film was like green, reds, black and whites and all that, right? So you buy a film for the certain white balance setting, and then that is what you will have. In modern cameras, you have the luxury of changing your white balance setting depending on what mood you want to evoke, what what color you want to basically bring out and all that. So these are some of the white balance settings that are typically available in your cameras today. Tungsten, basically, so if you know tungsten produces a very warm yellowish light. So the camera basically adds more blue to compensate for the yellows in the picture. So that is how white balance works. So if you're, so it ranges from warm to cool. So if you feel that your scene is very warm and you want to balance it out, you choose a cooler setting. So that way the camera neutralizes the yellows in the image. Or if you feel that the image is very cool, there's a lot of blues, there's a lot of greens in the image, then you use a warmer setting so that it neutralizes the cool colors that are there in the image. So that way you consistently get a balanced sort of an image. Types of photography that are out there, you have, again, this is just a small subset. There are n number of types that are out there, but you have fashion, landscape, sports, lifestyle, events, product photography, wildlife, and macro photography. Right. So again, depending on your creativity, you can invent new genres of photography, or you can combine multiple of these genres and then create another subgenre. So it's all up to you, right? So there is no limit to the types of photography. These are just some of the widely used terms that are out there in photography today. And
You have done everything?
yeah, I'll just show you some shots and then some of my recommendations for what to use. And these are all images that I shot. Right. So for wildlife, I typically go from ISO 100 to 800. I try to keep my aperture not too closed in, because generally wildlife you shoot in darker inside the jungle, or you're in a darker area. So or you're going early mornings. So I typically try not to close down my aperture too much, but then I have to keep my shutter speed high because these are moving subjects. So I have to ensure that I shoot. I am able to capture the thing. If your camera allows, keep your setting to focus setting to eye focus, because it focuses on the eye of the animal that you're trying to shoot. Modern camera supported. If your camera has it, use it. And metering, I generally stick with matrix metering here. Lifestyle photography, again, these are people that I tend to shoot. So generally people like nice blurry background, them being in focus. So I try to shoot this at as wide open as possible. I keep my ISO to a minimum because I generally shoot it in the day. Shutter speed, I try to keep it high because I want to capture those quick emotions. But then sometimes I slow down if I want to do some creative shots. Fashion photography, this is where you have a little bit more flexibility because you augment it with additional lights. right? So you're in a typical studio environment. You have additional light, so you are not really constrained by the amount of light that you have. So you can close down your aperture as much as possible if you want. You can play around with your shutter speed. So this is one area where you get full freedom to play around with, right? So depending on how you want your shots to be. So please feel free to go as crazy as you want. And landscape, so I generally try and do panoramic shots. Right, so these are all shot on my SLR, where I've taken multiple shots and then stitched it together. I try to keep my ISO high or mid to high because I typically shoot early mornings or late nights. I keep my shutter speed high as possible because sometimes I need the that much amount of time for light to actually come in. And then I keep my aperture to as closed as possible because I want my shots to be in focus fully. So this is one important thing. If your camera can shoot raw is where generally what you do is you click a picture, it saves as a JPEG. JPEG is a lossy format, meaning it doesn't save all the data that your camera sensor captures. Raw is basically all the data that your sensor has that gets written into the file. So why shoot raw? This is an image of an eagle that I shot in Kabini. This is a raw image. You will see that the colors are flat. You feel that okay, the image is very unflattering. It's basically a bad shot. But with raw, because all the data is there, I'm able to recover the data. Right. So I'm actually able to bring back the colors. I'm actually able to bring back the depth, the clarity that I need in that particular image. So that's the power of shooting raw. The disadvantage with shooting raw is that every image will at least be 3x, 4x the size of a normal image because there's additional data getting written. So if you have the storage space, if you have the patience to sit and edit your images, always shoot raw.
So
Yes.
in the folder only, we will have a two set of image, one 13 MB, one 3 MB.
Correct.
So 13 MB is the raw thing.
13 MB is the raw. So this is an image of a tiger that I shot in Kabini. Again, you see that because it was a pretty bright day, I didn't have enough time to change settings and all that. I shot this photo. The tiger is very underexposed. But because I shot in raw, I'm able to bring back the details. So yes, getting started with mobile photography, right? Any questions so far?
Okay.
The thing that you told on JPEG, right? Can we assume the same holds good for say PNG and everything? Only RAW is the raw, actual RAW, and anything that's commonly known as JPEG, PNG, TIFF,
TIFF is
everything.
lossless. TIFF is lossless.
Sorry, TIFF is
TIFF is lossless. TIFF will have
equivalent to RAW. Okay, understood.
It's almost equivalent to raw.
Okay.
JPEG, PNG, all of that is lossy. It will.
And what you're saying is, if we have DSLR or SLR, these are configurable options when we shoot.
Even with mobile photography, you can
Oh.
shoot raw.
Oh, understood. Super. Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
know this.
Yeah. So the first step to shooting in your phone is that you have to understand the limitations. Right? Smartphones typically have smaller sensor. Right? Which means that yes, like I said earlier, megapixels don't really matter here. Megapixels are more of a marketing ploy than anything at this point. Because by virtue of them having smaller sensor, the amount of data that they will capture is less. So even if you have I can show you a 1 megapixel smartphone camera shot that still looks good because the lighting was good, versus you shot something on a 108 megapixel smartphone thing, the photo was bad because lighting was bad, right? So it all depends on light. Megapixels don't count. So if you're buying smartphone for megapixels, please don't waste your
So
money.
I always thought of it because the DSLR I have is like only 12 megapixel. Okay. But the phones are going like 50, 100 megapixel.
Correct.
So what is that then? What is megapixel?
So megapixel is basically the number of pixels per square inch,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. So because DSLRs have larger sensor,
Mm.
right? So the pixel data is going to be more, though the number of megapixels are lesser. The number of the pixel sizes are going to be more, so it means it's going to capture more light data. So that way you get better images. But imagine a sensor that is as small as a smartphone sensor, like 1/2/15 of an inch, right? You can cram, 100 megapixels in there, but then the pixels are going to be so
Quality.
small that the amount of data that they are capturing is going to be so small, right? So which means that they are going to produce subpar image quality anyways.
Yeah, understood.
Right.
So
These are
even in that,
these are
even
physical
if one
limitations.
pixel is taken, what is the detailing available depends on the
Size
sensor.
of the pixel, correct.
Okay.
Because you have a bigger sensor, you have bigger pixels there, which captures more light data than a typical smartphone sensor, which has more pixels in there, but then each pixel is small. So now your camera has to work extra hard to extrapolate all that data and form an image.
So pixel is not like single 0 and 1. It is pixel itself is again one pixel is again combination of many information.
Correct. Each pixel has to capture RGB data, so which means that it has those sensors. So the
Okay.
smaller the pixel size, the smaller the RGB data it's going to get.
Okay.
Right. So please understand the limitations of smartphone photography. Right. So it has a smaller sensor, which means that your image quality is definitely going to be lesser than what you will get from a typical SLR or a mirrorless. These have fixed lenses. Some modern smartphones have some movable lenses in there, but then they're again they are what comes with the camera, right? So you have limited controls in the sense that based on the application that you're using, you are only exposed to some parameters that you are able to control. A lot of the smartphones come with generic features. You're going to get a portrait mode, you're going to get a panoramic mode, which will suffice for the most part. But then if you want to get serious about photography there, you will find that some of these generic features you will never even use. Right. So understand the limitations that are out there in your smartphone so that you will find a way to play around those limitations. These are all images that I shot on my phone. Right. So some of the techniques that are out there are you can shoot black and white. Let's say you wanna put focus on, say, a certain pattern or a certain subject. Black and white generally gives you that that elegance to an image. Grid alignment is where if you have seen in the smartphone, you will see two lines running across and two lines running horizontally. So that's like that's called a golden ratio grid. So if you figure out how to align your subject to the grid, your images immediately start looking better. You have street photography, basically random subjects that you find on the street that you think are interesting. You juxtapose them with other stuff. So you get street photography. You have panoramas. You have like a large, maybe Madanish, you can try this out with the Golden Gate Bridge since you're in Cali, right? So this was shot there. Basically, panoramas are where you have like a landscape image that you want to basically shoot. You want to get the full view of the image that is not typically, you're not able to cover it in one photograph. You can use panoramas. Long exposures, cameras do allow long exposure. So this is the Sydney Opera House that I shot where you see that the clouds are all smooshed over, gives you like a nice dramatic effect because I shot long exposure. High key is where you have a lot of highlights in the image, a lot of whites, a lot of highlights, a lot of bright spots in the photo that lends to the subject. Lens flares. So here, this was shot in Kabini where I had the sun directly shining into my smartphone. So you will see the flaring from the trees, basically. Juxtaposition is where you put one subject in front of another so that there is that contrast that you get. So here I had a full moon in the sky juxtaposed with the road. Right. So these are some photography techniques that you can try.
Isla, when you say you have done it in your phone, for laymen like us, it is it is sort of very surprising.
Phones are pretty good.
Is there any specification on the phone itself? Like any good decent phone is
No, it's about the photographer. I have also seen guys with a normal phone can take this kind of photos, but
okay.
it's like your imagination, right?
Correct,
Or
correct.
you know
And
what
then,
you want,
and then
so you
nuances,
do it.
what to adjust where, etc. கலை நயம் எடுக்கணும் கண்ணுல கலை நயம் எடுக்கணும் first.
See, some of these, like if you're using grids, right? So some of these are signs, right? So if you're using grids, like this is one concept. If you're getting yourself familiar with, if you look at these are not images that I've shot, by the way. This is what I found on the internet. So you have different types of grids, and what you see is that if you place a subject at the intersection of the grid, then automatically your eye is drawn to that section, right? Say, for example, here in the diagonals, you have the mocktail shaker placed at the intersection. So immediately your eyes are drawn towards that, right? So that is how grids help you pull the eye of the viewer to a certain subject that you want the viewer to be interested in. So this is science. If you understand grids and if you're able to place your subject that you're photographing along a grid line, automatically your images will look better, right? So some of these are things that you can learn. Some of them are again up to your imagination, up to your creativity, however you want to do it. But there's a lot of science also involved. There's a lot of psychology involved in creating an image.
So to start with, you suggest us to enable the grid in our phones first?
Please enable grids on
Okay.
your phone.
Yeah, makes sense.
I didn't even know that that's possible. Okay, I will do it.
Again, so this is another thing that I think all modern smartphones have, which is a portrait mode, right? So this is me shooting my friend, in front of the Golden Gate Bridge. So I used the portrait mode to get, blur out the Golden Gate Bridge so that he is in focus. If you're shooting people, generally people like these kind of images, right? So again, something that you can experiment with to instantly get better images. So this combined with the grid concept, if you're putting the subject in a grid line and then you're using a portrait mode, that gives you an instant lift to the quality of the image that you're doing, right? So it's all a combination. This is my son. So this was shot in the Perambur Railway Museum.
Oh,
The key is to observe available light, right? So, and see how you want to use it. For in this instance, there is sun shining through from the left of the image through the door of the train, right? So I placed him to the right of the image and had him look to the left of the image. So that way his face is lit up, right? And then there's also light coming in from the right through the other door as well. So that is lighting up his other side of the image. So that this creates a nice dramatic lighting effect where he's lit on both sides and then you have some dark spots in the center. So this creates like a cinematic effect, right? So learn to see available light before you're shooting an image. Never try and shoot with light coming in from the back because your subject is now going to become darker because the light is going to dominate the scene. Try and place the subject in front of the light as much as possible, right? So those are keys. Experiment with placements. But the key here is that look at the scene, see how it is lit, see how you want to position your subject in that available light.
just asking normal difficulty I face. Place yourself in front of the light. சன் இருக்கு. அதுக்கு ஃப்ரண்ட்ல பண்ணும்போது கண்ண மூடிடுறாய்ங்க. சைடுல வச்சா இட்ஸ் லைக் ஃபேட் இந்த சைடு வந்து ஃபேஸ் ஒரு சைடு ஆஃப் ஃபேஸே வந்து டார்க் ஆயிடுது.
Correct.
How do you handle that scenario?
What I
Exposed to
do,
sun எடுக்கிறது not advisable.
so what I do is, if I don't have a diffuser with me, I ask the client to, I'll tell you what a diffuser is. I'll tell my client to say, ஒரு 1 second 2 second மட்டும் கண்ணை ஓபன் பண்ணிக்க வச்சுக்கோங்க. நான் 1 2 3 சொல்றேன், கண்ணை ஓபன் பண்ணுங்க, நான் போட்டோ எடுத்துறேன், அப்புறம் கண்ணை முடிக்கோங்க.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Makes
So
sense. Yeah.
Rekha is asking to be admitted again.
Yeah, I joined her.
Done. So that is one thing that I do, which means that now my shutter speed should be high because they're only going to open it for maybe a second or two. Right.
Okay.
So things like that. What is a diffuser? Basically, a diffuser is a white cloth, stretched over thing. So if you're able to place it above the exactly, right? So if you're able to place it above the subject, then they don't have to directly see the sun. The light also becomes
So
softer.
Jagdish, Akshay, here doubt.
Yes, Akshay.
So there are some times where light will always be behind you. You cannot control it. அப்போ எப்படி எடுக்கலாம் photo? For example, நேச்சுரலா இடத்துல வந்து நம்ம சன்செட் எடுக்கிறோம். சன் பின்னாடி இருக்க நம்ம பீச்ல அந்த மாதிரி செட்டப்ல வந்து how you can take the photo அந்த மாதிரி when you are forced to keep the light behind you.
So if you are able to shoot raw, right? So then in post processing you can bring back the shadows.
Okay.
Right? The other option would be that if you have the luxury of using an external light that you can light up your subject, like a flash.
Okay.
Right? So you can use flash.
Even in morning also?
Morning, however, see, again, there's no rule that use pananum, there's no rule. Right? So it's up to you. Right? So if you feel that your subject is dark, if you have the luxury of adding an auxiliary light to the scene so that your subject is lit up, please use. Don't be afraid to use.
Yeah, just இப்போ இங்க மார்னிங் டிராவல் பண்ணிட்டு ஒரு டிபிக்கல் எக்ஸாம்பிள் சொல்றேன். நான் டிராவல் பண்ணிட்டு தான் ஒரு ஹோட்டல் கிளாஸ் விண்டோ இருக்கு. வெளியே வந்து ஒரு சீனரி இருக்கு எனக்கு. அத போட்டோ எடுக்கிறப்ப ஐ நாட் ஏபிள் டு டேக் பிகாஸ் மை கேமரா இஸ் நாட் எதர் ஃபோக்கஸிங் ஆன் மை ஃபேஸ் ஆர் அட் தி பேக்ரவுண்ட். இட் இஸ் நாட் ஏபிள் டு capture both the images actually.
Correct. So that is where I'll suggest some apps that you can start using. So where you are able to control the aperture. So in this instance, because your background you're saying is getting blurred or you are getting blurred, you will have to close down the aperture so that way both of you are in focus.
Okay. And the same thing, assume light is coming from the left or right side, it will form a shadow on the other side.
Correct.
அதுக்கு இதே solution
Same that if you want both the parts to be well lit, you have to either augment it with light or turn the subject around so that it directly the light falls on them. Right? Okay. So these are depending on the scene, depending on how you want to do it, you will have to find out some creative ways to do this. You can put a reflector on the other side so that light reflects on the reflector and then lights up the shadow part.
மச்சான்
assume ஒண்ணுமே இல்லனா you have to take raw and post processing.
Sorry,
ஒண்ணுமே இல்லனா shoot raw and then try to compensate in post.
Okay, thanks.
See, the questions we are asking on the go mobile எடுக்கிற photos அங்க போய் நான் லைட் சோர்ஸ் எல்லாம் ஜஸ்ட் நான் பண்ணும்போது என்ன கரெக்ஷன் பண்ணிக்கணும்.
நீ வந்து ஒரு ஹோட்டல் ரூம்ல எடுக்கிற லைக் ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ரைட். ஸோ உனக்கு வந்து ஹோட்டல் ரூம்ல இருக்கிற ஐட்டம் தான் எனக்கு இருக்குன்னு நீ சொல்ற. You are saying that okay, I'm shooting my subject, only the left side of my face is getting lit. You should have a bed sheet in the hotel room.
Okay.
White bed sheet. Hold up the white bed sheet on the other side, so that becomes your reflector. So light is going to fall on the bed sheet and then light up your shadow.
Okay.
Shadow parts, nice. Right? So you can look at things in the room and then see how you want to creatively use it. எதுமே ஆள ஷூட் பண்ணுங்க. எதுமே
almost like இதுதானே ஏதோ சொல்லுவாங்களே கையில நெய்ய வச்சுக்கிட்டு வெண்ணெய் வச்சுக்கிட்டு நெய் கலர் மாதிரி கண்ணுக்கு முன்னாடி என்ன இருக்கோ அதை யூஸ் பண்ணுங்க. பட் அகைன் with a creative lens.
Correct. See, you may not have thought of that correct. These can be used.
Yes, correct.
Right. So now you will, when you're trying to shoot something, you will see okay, in this எனக்கு டார்க்கா இருக்கு, maybe can I figure out something, right? So that is the whole intent of this thing, like try and get you out of your comfort zone and then
win. This session is winning.
Yes.
இல்லாட்டி கால் பண்ண போறோம்
anytime. இது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா, so this particular image is using leading lines. So this was shot inside an auto rickshaw where I saw this interesting pattern on the top. But what it will lead you to is the auto driver. The auto driver is my subject. So no matter how you look at this image, your eyes will automatically follow the line and then look at the auto driver.
But I see a symmetry here. Both you made sure that you are available on both the rear view mirrors.
Because I'm
That
in the
was
center, I inadvertently came in both the rear view mirrors.
okay.
But yeah, so these are leading lines. And again, so this is proof that I shot this on a mobile phone. Use reflections. So this is one thing that I shot on 15th of November. This is like my most recent image that I shot for a couple pre-wedding shoot. I shot the same image on my SLR, but I also took another image on my smartphone and edited this on my smartphone. So this was in the Butterball in Mahabalipuram, right? So the Krishna's Butterball in Mahabalipuram, where you have to do a little bit of a walk and then you'll find a spot where there is water there. So use reflections. So if you are able to use reflections, please, try and use reflections.
So the image in phone and image in DSLR in the same frame. More
I
or
will
less.
send you the same image that I shot in
Okay. Okay.
SLR
Just
also.
to compare how it looks.
Yeah. Look for symmetry. People love symmetry, right? So if it's unsymmetrical, sometimes people dislike it, but if it's symmetrical, almost everybody likes symmetry, right? So if you're able to, this is again Sydney Opera House, right? So where I split the image right in the middle, try to introduce some symmetry to the image. You can use slow shutter, long exposure creatively. So this was an image of a car and a street building in New York. Basically, I used long exposure to create this blurry effect. Again, these are creative shots. The intent was not to get everything in focus. The intent was to just create a sense of motion. So that's how I use long exposure here. This is Woodlands Hotel, right? So patterns. Right. So this is this is Palm Grove. Sorry, this is Palm Grove Hotel in Nungambakam, where the reception had a lot of hexagonal boxes. So the pattern, use patterns, try and take images of patterns. This was not an image that I shot. This is something that I found on the internet because I couldn't find a blocking thing. Right. So if you look at this image, you're immediately drawn to the red car. Why? Because everything else is gray or silver color. So use color blocking or negative space as much as possible. Focus on one subject at a time. If there are too many things happening in an image, people get confused. So as long as you simplify the image for your viewer, that's the best thing. This is in Coimbatore. If you go to Coimbatore, you will see the new housing board flats there. So this is like basically an abstract pattern that I saw, that I shot on my scooter while I was standing in the signal. Right. So this is basically juxtaposed with the open blue sky and the patterns that the building forms. So these are abstracts that formed. And again, there's no limit. Please go crazy with your edits. You're creating images for yourself. You're not in a competition. You're basically trying to create memories. You're trying to create better memories for yourself, right? So don't be afraid to take those photographs. So photography apps, what I would suggest is, if some of them are paid, some of them are free, right? So Moment is a pretty good app. Your native iPhone camera app is also pretty good. It gives you a lot of control. Lens Distortion is another great app that I've seen, and Lightroom. For Android, Camera FV5, Gcam, which is your Google Cam. If you're on a Pixel, amazing. You have pretty good software that is out there. Open camera, manual camera. So the reason why I suggest these apps is because they let you take full control of the camera of your smartphone.
Sorry to interrupt. There is a thing, if you take with WhatsApp camera, it's not going to be as clear as a phone camera. So these apps also have a reduced quality, or they will be enhancing.
It is not the camera software that is reducing the quality. It is WhatsApp that is compressing your image because it has to split it.
Okay.
So if you're sending it in WhatsApp, there is a mode called HD. Either activate that or send the photograph as a file so that it does not compress the file. Any image, any video that you send over WhatsApp will be compressed, which means
No, their camera only is not that much clear because they are compressing it for their memory purpose. But these apps won't reduce the quality of the image.
You're going out. Yeah.
Okay.
Editing apps again. So you have pretty much the same set of software that is available everywhere. Snapseed is a free editing software, a really good one. That is what I used initially in my early days to learn smartphone editing. Adobe Lightroom. Lightroom is paid, by the way. Everything else is paid. Snapseed is free. Lens Distortion, Luminar Mobile. So these are great editing apps. So Akshay, to your other questions about, what do I do in this situation? So you have a lot of smartphone accessories these days, right? So you get additional lenses that you can put on top of your existing lens to get better.
But is it specific to a model of the phone, or it can be used for any?
Some of them are universal. Some of them are specific to the model of your phone.
Okay.
Right. So you get a lot of these accessories that are out there that you can use over and above your existing smartphone lenses to enhance your image. Nowadays, they are actually shooting full-fledged feature films on an iPhone using some of these accessories. But again, it would be unfair to say on the phone they will be augmenting with lights, they will be augmenting with these accessories, they will have like expensive setups and all that. But yeah, but it is possible. So yes.
Okay.
That brings
Case we can take as raw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, shoot in raw and figure it out.
Okay. And one more thing, Jagdish. Nowadays AI is coming in all phones.
Yes.
They are actually spoiling the image. That's what I told you. That's your view.
See,
This is like capturing Jagdish in the airport by Sunday with journalist.
It is trying to do automatically.
What did he say? Capturing
your
viewpoint. Now, whatever you are telling now.
Sun TV journalist, இது நடந்திருக்கு. இதோட உங்களோட கருத்து என்ன?
Okay. See, again, AI is just a tool, in my opinion, right? Say I use AI in some of my shots to make the image better, in the sense that, let's say that I am trying to shoot a couple that is in a public space, and I have a lot of people walking around. I cannot go and say, "Ninga ingala nadakadinga, na photo edukurenla." So I use AI to remove those people from my image. Right. So again, AI is a tool. If you use it, it's up to you whether you want to recreate full-fledged images that you have not shot, or you want to augment the images that you have shot. Right. It's up to you. AI is here to stay, right? But then AI cannot shoot what you shoot. Right. It can generate an image based on images that other people have shot. But yeah, in my opinion, it's a tool.
Okay. Jagdish, see, if you have a couple of more minutes, okay, I have this basic thing here.
Yeah.
Canon. I don't use it often. So how do I maintain this?
Maintenance, there are a couple of things, right? So camera attracts fungus.
Yeah.
You didn't know, right?
Yes.
And if it gets into your inner lens elements, that lens is going to be useless.
Okay.
So you have to keep it in a dry box, if possible, if you can afford one.
Airtight box.
Airtight box, or dry box, or you have to keep it in an airtight box with like your silica gel.
Okay.
Something like that. So that way,
The whole camera or just the lens?
Full camera.
Okay.
Keep your camera, your lenses in a box with silica gel and all that. So that way there's no moisture there. So that way mold cannot grow, fungus cannot form.
Yeah.
Right. So that's important. If you can afford a dry box, get a dry box. Right. So, and then service your lenses at least once a year. Service your camera once a year. It doesn't cost a lot. It costs you probably 300-400 rupees per year. Right. So, but then your camera will thank you. It will.
Yeah.
So yeah, simple maintenance. Again, you can buy some of these lens cleaning, cloth, your sensor cleaners.
That blower,
are available,
okay.
blower and all that. So you can DIY your own maintenance as well.
So better to keep it in a dry place, because now that it is a rainy season, right? Because I have seen my camera has gone through the fungal stage. I had to do a lot of things to have make it work again, etc. So just wanted to check. You are a camera guy, right? You know it better than
Yeah.
me.
So I keep mine in a dry box. All my cameras,
Okay.
all my lenses, I keep everything in a dry box
There
because
is a separate thing called dry box only.
yes.
Okay, it's not the common backpack what we carry. It is
No.
okay.
So this is basically a box which has a motor inside that will take out all the moisture.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Yeah, got it. Sure, man.
All right. Are you done with your content, Jagdish?
My content is done. Open for any questions or any other topics that you can discuss related to photography.
இந்த தீபாவளியில ஸ்பார்க்லர்ஸ் வச்சு எழுதுறாங்களே.
Long
I
exposure.
tried out, but it didn't work.
That I have tried. I have tried. It worked, but I don't know how. Somebody help me. I have tried.
Okay. I always wanted to do that.
So setup. So if you're doing long exposure, put your
Mm.
camera on a tripod,
Oh, yeah. Mm.
right? Because if you're holding it in your hand is bound to shake. Even those minute shakes will make your image blurry. Put it
Okay.
on a tripod. Use a remote shutter, right? So
Mm.
use a remote shutter so that even if you press the button, your camera will shake. That's going to lead to blurry image. So use a remote shutter,
Okay.
right? And then set it to a high open shutter. Like if you can do 20 seconds, 30 seconds, do 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Once you click the shutter, then you draw whatever you want to with the sparklers in front of the thing, and then you will get that image.
Okay. Good, good. Nice. So your son started already? The
He-
photography thing?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, nice. Like
Yeah.
father, like son.
What camera do you have, that?
Oh, man. Dude, he said tell specifications. Awesome, yeah.
ஐந்தில் வளையாது 50 வளையாது மணி.
எனக்குலாம் இந்த வேலையில மச்சான். I have this, right? But I still don't know those settings. நான் இன்னும் auto mode வச்சே ஓட்டிட்டு இருக்கேன். This guy's gonna scold me for that.
Whole session-ஏ வந்து
This was one thing that I did with that light thing.
Ah, okay. How much exposed is this?
I
How
have no
long you
idea.
had
This,
it?
I think I shot this in 2011, so I have no idea.
Okay, okay, okay. Nice.
the primary intent, one of the intent of these sessions is to go back, squeeze your brain, so that getting uncomfortable. But only when you get uncomfortable, you can grow and
Yeah,
learn.
I had it next to me. I thought like he will teach me how to do and I will take some photos. And
அதுவும் பண்ணுவோம். அது 2-on-ல வரும். Everybody has a 2-on.
For that, I think we will have to have a live session. Maybe we can book a studio and
டேய் அப்பா
now
டைம்
we
ஆயிடுச்சு
can.
கிளம்பலாம் வா.
Hey, hi Mudali. Nice to see you, man. Thank you for joining.
They are from beginning actually. Hey Mudali.
Yeah, I didn't see him. Hello.
Hi, Sul.
எல்லா பசங்களும் இன்ட்ரெஸ்டடா இருக்காங்க.
Okay. Typical ritual. Can all of you come on video if possible? We'll take a screenshot so that we create some buzz in the main global group. Akshay, Adit, even if you are in the car, that shows the commitment, sir. Thank you, sir. Okay. Rekha, Adit, and Prasanna. Adit, it's early for you? I think so. No, it's late.
Hey, Prasanna.
Hey, hi, man.
No, Prasanna is driving. அதனால driving ல இருக்கேன். அதனால தான் I'm not.
No problem. அப்படியே கீழே பார்க்காத, அப்படியே பாரு. நான் ஸ்கிரீன்ஷாட் பண்ணி எடுத்துக்கிறேன். Adit, what about you, Adit? Okay, I will take the screenshot. 1 minute.
டேய் ரோட்ட பார்த்து ஓட்டுங்கடா.
Look at the camera.
எத்தாச்சா?
Look at the camera. Bye.
அவன் டிரைவ் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கான். Let him not look.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, see you guys.
Let me stop recording.
December meet
So
பண்ணலாம்.
the next one, the next session will be in December first week itself. Mrs. Aruna has given her calendar. I think the topic is not might be related to yoga. Hey Adit, now you have come. Can we do one more? Akshay Prasanna, sorry. Yeah. Akshay, yes. Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right, look at the camera, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next one will be December 7th, I believe so. I will keep the group updated. And following that, January is Shalini, followed by February, I think Jeevita is doing something, and then maybe March I will do. If there are any volunteers from this group, Mutali, Prasanna, Mani, please do let me know. I will add to the backlog. Okay.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Awesome
Bye.
session, man.
Bye.
Bye.